So far this meeting has been very productive for Argentina, and this is quite unique for an IDB meeting in Argentina. First of all, I don't think you've had many appearances of finance ministers of Argentina over the last few years in the IIF. I wonder. I'm pretty sure that you didn't. Yesterday we signed a very important loan for education for Argentina with IDB President Luis Alberto Moreno, which is also a starting point of a new relationship. We are discussing a pipeline of old but also new programs with the IDB, such that we can turn net outflows into net inflows. Over the last 10 years, Argentina has put more money into the IDB than the money that we received from the IDB, because the disbursements were basically on a downward trend. This is largely true of most other multilateral development banks, and that's also something that's changing right now. Another important thing that you might be aware or not is that the US is no longer voting automatically against anything on Argentina, on these multilateral organizations. So slowly but surely we're putting this particular house in order, and I thought it was important for us to start from that point, given that in the end we've came to Bahamas not for the beach or the IIF, but rather for the IDB meetings. This of course has significant considerations or implications, both on the balance of payment side, which you guys might be looking at, but also on a very important chapter of what we hope will be the keystone of the Macri administration, which is infrastructure investment throughout the country. Pretty much all the meetings that I've had so far in Bahamas have had to do with infrastructure. We've met with JBIC, the European Bank of Investment, CAF, OPEP, you name them, and everyone is very interested in finding a way of financing Argentina's way back into the world and into the future. So I'm very aware that you already know that Argentina is back. The question is what we do going forward now that we're back, and that's basically the thoughts I wanted to share with you today. Before we get into that, 100 and some days into a new administration, we've been doing lots of things. I think you've been watching closely. There are 3 milestones that I'd like to focus on when I look back through the rearview mirror of these 100 and something days, just to make sure that you don't miss them, because there are so many things that have happened. The Senate voted for leaving the default and paying the holdouts with a 75% vote. 54 votes out of 72 possible. There were 70 in the room, which in itself was already quite a thing. I frankly don't remember any other important law that was passed over the last 15 years with 3/4 of the approval in the Senate. And in the House it was not too far off, 165 votes. Out of those 54 votes, 19 votes are ours. You know that we are far from actually showing a majority in the Senate or the Chamber of Deputies. I shouldn't say lower chamber, because I was deputy myself and we're no lower than anything. But it's 19 plus 35, our own vote, plus another 35 votes from the opposition. The very interesting thing about this is that we got more votes from Frente para la Victoria than our own votes. And Frente para la Victoria was this party that told you that they will never ever pay to the vultures and blah 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 blah. So I'm not rubbing anyone's leg. All I'm saying here is that do spend some time at reflecting upon what's going on in Argentina from an institutional point of view. And the one little anecdote that I enjoy a lot is one of those 35 votes in favor of the holdout agreement came from Alberto Rodriguez Sá, who was the guy who started the whole thing in the first place, if you remember. So, for all of those who looked at Argentina and said, well, these guys are cool, I like them, they kind of sing the same tune, and, I want them to be lucky, and I want them to do well, blah, blah, blah. But, it so happens that they've got the Peronist Party in front of them. Will they be able to do their own thing? I think this particular project and this particular vote in the Senate is a sea change with anything that we've seen in the past in Argentina, and it would be wrong to overlook it. Of course, it's step by step. We're going to have more laws, and I can't quite possibly anticipate that we'll always get 75% of the vote in any of the chambers. But this, to me, is one of the milestones of the last 120 years, 20 days, and maybe years as well, if you want. Why not? Second milestone, the important visits that we've had at the beginning of the administration. Of course, the most emblematic one was from President Obama, but we also had the President of France and the President of Italy as well, among others. And these were countries whose presidents we hadn't seen in Argentina for almost 20 years, which in itself says a lot already. You would have thought that our natural counterparts, besides Brazil and the region, are countries like the US, France, and Italy. There are more Italians in Argentina than there are Brazilians, for instance, in a way. But the point I'm making is that the world is eager to see Argentina coming back, and these visits make this statement very credible. In particular, Obama's visit and his chemistry with President Macri and with the rest of the team. And of course, Davos and G20 and all other appearances that we've had over the last few weeks. The third milestone we need to reflect upon, I believe at least, you might have other milestones, is the revamping we're doing with the National Statistics Institute. People kind of got to the point where they gave up on Argentina statistics. They just realized that Argentina was cheating, and therefore they took them as cheating. But what we're trying to do here is not small talk. It's basically putting the whole thing back into the system, and it's taken a while. We had to decree an national statistics emergency. We've had to reshuffle, the different ranks of the institution. We had to lay off quite a few of the liars of the previous administration, and we're now starting to republish some of these indicators. In fact, we've been pretty active in March, for those of you who follow Argentina statistics very closely. So my first thought for you guys is that there is a very strong institutional will from the different powers of Argentina to be part of the world. It's not just Ingeniero Macri who wants to be part of the world. It's Argentina by and large, through its different institutions, that wants to be part of the world, and it seems to be the case that the world wants Argentina to be part of it as well, which is also a good thing. It's not a one-way road, but it's actually a two-way road. Second issue is, governability. I don't know if there's a word like that in English. There might be. Against this curse of, can anyone run Argentina with the Peronist Party in front, with the opposition being run by the Peronist Party? This will be, as I said before, step by step, but it's happening, and it's happened in the first law that was in itself one of the most controversial laws that we will end up sending to Congress this year and probably next year as well. So, don't underestimate how important that was. And also don't underestimate how important it is to start building a new regime on the grounds of the truth rather than on the grounds of cheating on your statistics. Second thought I want to send through today is something, I'll go through quickly because you're all aware of it, of all what we've done. But we've been trying to put the macroeconomic house in order, and I myself have spent most of my time on that task. You know what we've done, the FX regime, export taxes, import bans, regulations. We now have an independent central bank. We are dismantling the subsidies that up until recently were just given away to everyone regardless of their social class, in as much as they were living in Buenos Aires or nearby, completely at odds with any idea of focalized subsidy. We are running a tight fiscal policy, which is tough in the middle of non-growth or a stagnated economy, but we are holding on to that one. We are close to finishing up the issue with the holdouts, as you all know. And the other thing is that despite many forecasts to the contrary, and even diagnosis to the contrary, there's been very little pass-through between the devaluation of the currency and actual, goods and services prices. And I'm happy to take that question if there is more need for clarification in the Q&A session. So this is my question for you guys. I mean, if we are no longer cheating with the statistics and with the numbers, if we are finally honoring all our debts, if we are re-engaging with the world and with the international financial institutions, and the world seems to be willing to re-engage with us, if we can pass critical laws without majorities in either chamber, if we are putting into place and reining in the many macro imbalances that we've inherited, and there are quite a few, my question would be then, what else does one need to do for you guys to invest in Argentina? I mean, that's my question for the rest of the panel. Final thoughts on that one. We've got a fiscal program in place. We've got fiscal targets that are, as ambitious as they can be, given social and political constraints. We're planning on eliminating our primary fiscal deficit by the end of the mandate in 2019. We've got a program to bring inflation rates down to around 5% by then as well. We believe that what we're going through right now are transition effects of the many measures that we've put together and that we've taken, but by the second half of the year, the landscape will be very different, inflation-wise and economic activity-wise. The plan here is for the economy to, start growing into the second half of the year and probably strongly into next year, which is just what the electoral doctor ordered, because that's a very important milestone that we've got ahead of us. Next year we've got elections, and it's very important for us that we win more seats in Congress, because only then will we have enough, firepower for the pending structural reforms that most of you guys are thinking about. Bear in mind also that this is a very unleveraged economy, not just from the public sector side, but also from the private sector side. The flip side of that is that asset prices are very low compared to any other, country in the region or probably in the world. What we're doing, therefore, is, in macroeconomic terms, is by fixing and putting the house in order, we are hopefully increasing significantly the potential GDP, which we think, at least on a potential basis, is already rising. So my final, suggestion to you guys is hurry up. Thank you.